Okay, I think we're going. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. It's Ryan here with DP Marketing.Services with a super fun interview with Carla, and I'll introduce her in a second. Um, Carla's been a client of ours for, I don't know, 6 months, 9 months? I don't even know. Not forever, but we've had some really great conversations that I thought would be valuable to anyone tuning in right now. So, um, Carla, give us a bit about your company, like get us up to speed on Bell.
Yeah, of course. So Bell has been in the plumbing, heating, cooling, electrical, and remodel business since 1926. So not our first rodeo, but it's amazing to me how no 2 days are alike, and we always have a lot to learn.
Yeah, and you have an interesting background because you don't come necessarily from plumbing, HVAC, home service world, but you're close. Tell us a bit about your background.
Yeah, close-ish. So I have 6 months experience in the plumbing and heating business. Probably about 30 in marketing, real estate related services. So new homes, resale homes, working with builder developers and home service companies like roofing contractors, et cetera, on the ad agency side, and also on the private equity side.
Yeah, so you bring a whole lot of other sort of insight and experience to the table than like a lot of companies are lucky to have.
Well, you and I talked about the difference between where I come from when there's such a long lead time to keep this customer happy versus I need somebody here in 3 hours.
Yeah, it's a little bit different, the
It's a little bit
immediacy.
different.
Yeah. So one of the things that kind of started the idea of us even doing this interview and recording it was Carl and I were talking a couple weeks ago, and I made a note that so a little bit of background. If I overstep anything, Carla, feel free to rein me in or add more detail as you feel necessary. So Bell is, like Carla said, they're not a new company. They're a large company. They have many, many trucks. I think it's over 40. Is it over 50?
It is, yeah.
Yeah. So you got guys to keep busy. And a lot of times in a lot of markets, we see a lot of negative reviews come in on these larger shops because of just mainly because of price. There's a lot of concern about companies saying, this company is too much, they cost an arm and a leg, or they use all sort of like negative sentiment sort of concepts. And with Bell, they've been immune to it. And they might get on a given week 10 to 30 reviews on just Google alone. And almost all of them are positive, and none of them talk about price in the same way that other shops that we work with do. So it got me going, what do you do? Because why, like, it's just shocking to me that a company like Bell with that sort of influence and reach doesn't have that sort of negative attention that it drums up. So Carla, if you remember, like what do you have to say, like, about maybe the way you think about solving the customer experience problem to keep that from getting a negative review on Google?
Well, interestingly enough, Ryan, we were kind of having this conversation, myself and my service manager, at a little bit earlier today, and we were talking about nobody walks in to a Ferrari dealership and complains about the prices.
It's true.
So the first thing we want to do is build value. And so it's never about how much you charge. It's whether or not what you charge feels right. And
That's good.
so some of the things we do to really build value are genuinely putting the customer's best interest first. And I think probably that's the most important thing. It's part of our mission. We want to build customers for life. We don't want to build customers that give us a good, large ticket sale. And in fact, one of the things we can do to kind of combat our competition is there's not a job that we turn down because it's too small. And we have a fairly significant competitor in our market that regularly sends us referrals because they don't want them, they're too little. One of the first things they do when they check on a customer before they schedule an appointment is, oh, HVAC maintenance, no problem. How old's your system? Yeah, okay, we can probably get to you in 3 weeks. You might want to call Bell. And
Interesting.
so genuinely putting the customer first is important. So putting policies in place that make it easy for the customer to make an appointment with you. And I'll give the example as we had to revamp our system so that we could allow for emergency calls every single day. We don't book solid. We leave a space for emergency calls to make sure that if we get somebody that has a significant problem, think about it as a sick doctor appointment. When you make a well visit, it might be a couple weeks out, but when you make
Right.
a sick visit, they can usually get you right in.
Right.
The other thing is we've heard a lot. We are available for 24/7 emergency services, and we've heard a lot from customers that thank you for answering the phone. I called somebody else. They actually they say they do 24/7. They don't even actually answer their phones after hours. So thank you. All these things that raise a customer's anxiety, if the moment you can kind of calm them down, the better value you're going to provide. Which brings me to, obviously, we let our customers know the window will be there at their home. We call them ahead and say we're on our way. We show up on time when we say we will. And then our initial meet and greet presentation at the front door has to always consist of gratitude, experience, and confidence. Thank you so much for calling us. We know you had other choices. We really appreciate that you put your trust in us. We've been doing this since 1926, so we've got a lot of experience. In fact, our technicians average 14 years in the trade. And we're very confident that we can solve your problem today.
So how is that? So there's obviously you're in a large metro area, right? You have other shops of similar scale that might have, they might have different sorts of sales training. They might be kind of comparable, doing flat rate with different value options or whatnot. How is it that Bell thinks about knowing how you're unique and distinctive from your competition if the customer might want one or two different options or two or three different choices to pick from? How does Bell think about putting the customer first in that sort of scenario?
Well, interestingly enough, we have tech meetings every single week. And one of the things I like to do is ask them, what are you hearing from people? What's the word on the street? What do they like? What do they not like? We want to take it straight from our customers, what's working and what's not, even before we show up to the appointment. And the service manager is constantly doing role playing, which is very typical in a sales environment, not maybe so typical in a service environment.
How do the guys, I assume I said guys, but guys or gals, how do the techs who are doing the calls, how do they respond to that sort of like role playing and rehearsing essentially for being in front of the customer? How do they respond as a team?
About like you would expect. Really? Especially when you've got, we have techs that have been here for as much as, 30 years. And, some of them have just a great attitude. Oh, great. That's really good feedback. Thank you so much. I'm going to take that into consideration. And others saying, okay, this is really awkward, role playing with my peers. But in the end, what we're not looking for is a programmatic, a set script, just an approach that helps warm the customer up. Keep in mind they've got anxiety, they're nervous, they've got a problem, they need it fixed. And the sooner we can de-escalate their anxiety, the better. And that's why the gratitude, the years of service, and the confidence building really is intended to set their minds at ease.
Yeah, and we talk about that a lot, nobody likes having to call a plumbing contractor or an HVAC shop out to their house. Something I always say is they don't just sit on their couch on a Thursday afternoon sipping a Mai Tai just going, hey, let's look for a plumber. Yeah, they only do it when something's wrong. They get in the shower and it's cold. They come home from work and their house is hot or cold if
Right.
it's supposed to be, so
Yeah.
there's a problem. And so not only, I always come about it from the male perspective. I know you think about it from the female perspective. From a male perspective, I, I'm not the most handy guy in the world. And so I feel a little bit of guilt and shame, feeling
Right.
like,
That you should be.
yeah, that I should know how to fix this, that I should know how to take
Yes.
care of this.
Well,
Um,
and from my perspective, I don't I don't want to be oversold. I don't want, if I don't know what you're talking about, I don't want to risk you overselling me because I don't know the difference.
yeah, and that's a big deal,
Yeah.
right? Because there's a lot of sales training and they all have good points and bad points, but about trying to maximize the sales opportunity on a given call, even if it's things that might be unnecessary.
Right. So that gets me to the next point is when we initially meet the customer at the front door, and of course the first thing we do is pull a pair of shoe covers out of a pocket and put them on just to show respect.
Mhm.
But we set the stage and we say, okay, I understand that you have X problem, and we reiterate that we know why we're there. Then we talk to them about there are probably multiple scenarios here, and options for you. So what I want to do is first do the diagnosis, then I'll run through the options, or run through what is wrong with you and what those options are for repair. Let you select the course of action that you want to take, but I will not give you any pricing until I fully understand what it is that we found, and then it'll be up to you on if you want to take the next step and do some repairs. I'm prepared to do them right here and now. Or if you need to think about it, that's fine too, but I'm going to give you multiple options so that you can make the decision that best suits your need. Because we have to understand, some people, it's a price point. Some
Right.
people, it's a confidence in having equipment that works. So we don't ever want to assume that it's repair instead of replace, but we never want to upsell them and try and get a replace when a repair will work just fine.
Right. And putting the customer, like, as you often say, the customer's in the driver's seat. They don't
Yes,
think they are, they actually are in the
yes.
driver's seat.
And then once we give them their options, then if they select A, B, or C, we say, do I have your permission to start work right away? And again, puts them in the driver's seat, eases their mind, sets them, sets their confidence. So we get a lot of feedback that really explained the process to me, told me what he was doing the whole way, explained what could happen in the future, which parts might be next to fail, and just really helping them understand what it is that we've discovered.
Right.
So
So,
we have a
so
saying that we found at one of our suppliers: prognosis without diagnosis is malpractice. And we kind
huh,
of like that.
that is good. Prognosis without diagnosis is malpractice.
Yes.
That's awesome. One of the things that you mentioned too, like when we were talking a couple of weeks ago, that kind of got this whole idea going, was the idea of also understanding your competition. And we don't
Yes.
have to talk about specifically the strategies that Bell uses, but maybe if you can, maybe think of some experiences from your personal background of why understanding your competition is important. Because I have a feeling a lot of guys just kind of keep their nose to the grindstone. They don't really think about their competition, and sometimes that bites them in the butt. But what insight can you bring on that?
So we've been talking a lot about building value. And it's interesting, when you get a negative review and the negative review is about, well, you charged me too much. And our response is typically, as compared to what? As compared to a plumber in a truck,
Right.
as compared to you went to the hardware store and bought a part and fixed it yourself, as compared to what? And so knowing who your competition is, what they're known for, one of the things we do quite regularly is look at the reviews of our competitors to find out what people are liking and what people are not liking. And, we might adjust accordingly.
Yeah, and sometimes we find out some nuggets like we did in the past week, where we find that some competitors might not be on the up and up with how they acquire their reviews.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
that.
there is that. But yeah, and so yeah, so knowing that what they're known for, okay, so they really only want to take large jobs. They only want to take sales jobs, or they only want to maintain old equipment so that they have the chance of quickly upselling. And so we use that to our benefit and say, you know what, we're never going to try and sell you anything that you don't want and anything more than you need.
So you understand your place in the marketplace. You
Yep,
understand. You're not trying to be one size fits all. You're not trying to like squeeze everyone else. You're using the other companies to help make your strength stronger, to give you a unique
exactly.
value prop for your customer. And
Right.
because you're
It
different,
doesn't
it makes you valuable.
it doesn't change who we are. It might change how we talk about ourselves.
Sure. Sure. No, I think one of the things I think that just jumped out to me, just starting about this, and even in this conversation, is just knowing that I know a lot of guys that I talk to, um, they get so stuck in the either the overwhelming magnitude of just everything with running the business, and you know what it's like. You guys are going through a rebrand, and then you're relocating your offices. Like there's a lot at play, and then you start thinking about all these sales trainings, and you're not going to win them all, and how your competitors, like it's just a lot to juggle and understand. No, differentiation is good. Understanding your competition is good. Taking care of your customers and putting them first is
Yes,
good. Um, and at least our philosophy is when you take care of the customer first, everything else kind of takes care of itself.
it does. It
Right.
does. And in fact, we're on the upper end of the price range as compared to our competitors in terms of how we price things. And so what I always like to tell people is we have been here since 1926, which means that, we're going to be here to warrant anything that might potentially go wrong. If you have a part fail, we're here. We definitely have a preferred program for our repeat customers where they can get not only a discount off of future work that they do with us, but also get an extended, like double the labor warranty and the part warranty.
Awesome.
So what we really try and do is make it easy for them to call us again. But really, really what we're trying to do is just, you know, be the friendly face.
Hmm. Yeah. So, and I think that's good. Be the friendly face of not the salesy, not the pushy, not the sleazy or the grimy, but
No,
yep, you
no, I love
empathize.
when we get a review saying, I would invite him to Thanksgiving with my family.
And you guys got one the other day that I thought was fantastic. It was textbook. It was more expensive than the other options, but it was worth every penny.
Yes,
You're like, that's what it's about,
that's creating value. Absolutely.
Yep. So if
Oh, so
there's, oh yeah,
I lost track of what I was trying to tell you. What I try to tell people is that we've been around, we'll be around. We won't send anybody to your home that hasn't had a minimum of 5 years experience,
wow,
but the average is 14. We make sure that we give you all of the pricing up front and give you the chance to say, yes, I'd like to move forward, or that's actually more than I had in mind. Can I finance it? Or let me think about it, come back another time. And that's always okay. We always say, you definitely have a choice. You never are stuck.
right. So if you are, if you're trying to talk to someone who's like you in your position, a director of marketing at another company in another market, and maybe they're feeling maybe they're on the other end of the things that Bell has kind of figured out, of putting the customer first, of really making sure that they do the prognosis, and the diagnosis. What would you say to someone in your shoes, if they were watching this video right now?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I've only been here 6 months. The very first thing I did when I set foot in the door is I did a SWOT analysis. I want to know all the things that we're good at, all the things that we're not good at. I want to know what our strengths are, what our weaknesses are, what opportunities do we have for growth, what threats are there. And I don't ever want to be insincere. In other words, try to be all things to all people. We know who our market is, and we know how to speak to that market. And the theory is there's the price point market, where all that matters is price. There is the value market, where I want to pay just the right amount for what I get. And then there's the market that says, I just want the best. Mm-hmm. And we know where we fit into that, and we know where we don't. And telling the story correctly and honestly is probably the most important thing you can do for your business.
I think that's well said. I remember, like for me, when I was working in my MBA, one of the case studies we had to do is like retail, right? So you have, and a good example is like Sam's Club or Costco. When you start talking about the difference between like low cost or best cost, which would be like best value for what you get, there's a lot of evidence that says, hey, Sam's Club's going to take the cheapest route possible. Arguably, Sam's Club is going to have lower price points on just about anything.
They have a great market for what they do.
And at the same time, Costco can compete, but they don't do best cost. They do, their approach is like best value. Maybe it's different brands. The price might be a little bit more, but that difference in price and the difference in quality makes it worthwhile through their customer. It's not eating into each other's market. It's different market bases entirely.
Absolutely.
And it's interesting to hear even the way that Bell thinks about fragmenting their customer segment to identify these are the type of people we want, and this is how we can position ourselves with our pricing, with our sales pitches, with the way our texts speak to the customer. You're doing it from the very first contact all the way forward.
Absolutely, yes. And so identifying that customer journey and really, honing in on them and their personality and their preferences from the first moment they experience you through sale, and then, in my opinion, to repeat buyer.
Yeah, and that's really where your long-term success has been, is in having not just repeat customers, but generational customers.
Yes.
My grandma used you, my mom used you, now I'm using you. Like, you're creating these families of history with your business, which is fantastic.
Yes, relationships.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
I am so thankful that you took the time, because I know you're crazy busy. I'm so grateful you took the time to hop on and do this video. For everyone tuning in, I thank you for your time too. Carla, seriously, thank you. I'm going to give you a round of applause. I don't have an applause button, but seriously, Bell's doing some great work. Check them out at bellplumbing.com. Carla, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ryan, for everything.
Yep. And thanks for tuning in, guys.